going to begin by taking a roll call for quorum. George Slema.
Here.
Jack Duggan is not in his chair. Kathy Heislip.
Here.
Yes, Jack. Bob Kelly.
Here.
Beverly.
Here.
And Bob Heislip.
Here.
All right. We have a quorum present. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 10:02, and I'm going to ask our moderator Grace to explain how our remote participation will work before proceeding.
Thank you, Julie. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and the the April 2nd, 2021 Historical Commission meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Grace Rogers, and I'm the Office Administrator for the Yarmouth Historical Commission and will be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. Although no in-person attendance will be permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. People who would like to view or listen to this meeting will do so while in progress through the virtual meeting or dialing into the number provided on the notice of meeting. We'll also be posting a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are able to. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants of the virtual meeting enter the meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or moderator. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there's a second, the chair will ask for a roll call vote. Applicants and presenters will be made temporary panelists in order to share their screens while giving their presentation. All presenters and speakers need to identify themselves by first, last name, and affiliation when speaking. Non-presenting applicants can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The moderator will unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak. For public participation, comments or questions from the public will be taken at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. If you are dialed into the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to comment. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the record and provide their comment each time they speak. I'm now handing the meeting back to the chair. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, everybody. So our first thing we need to discuss is going over 16 River Street that some of us saw yesterday, and we had the owner at our last meeting. So I'm just gonna let you know my opinion of it while I got the floor for a sec here. I think that we should probably get Cape Cod Commission involved in this. The proposed addition, as far as I can see it, really changes the look of the house, and the owner doesn't seem very willing to change his plans, and he seemed really resistant yesterday to any of our suggestions, especially Bob. Kelly had some pictures of his own house that very similar, and the guy is just like, no, these are my reasons why we can't do that. And I think it's not really what he's trying to do. I get what he's trying to do, but I think it's inappropriate for the house and for the neighborhood. So that's my opinion. Bob, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you, Julie. I think the thing that struck me is he's not using an engineer. So he has no engineering drawings. The drawings are what he drew up. So he doesn't really even know what's possible there. By doing what he's doing, he will obliterate the original defining character features on the west side. If he were to be able to somehow move the front of the L to behind the lower window, the front lower window, he would then catch two of the existing windows on the western side, and he could dorm out the back of his existing house to coincide with the peak. And instead of entering that building from the front upstairs room, it would be accessible to the back upstairs room. So I think he's very unwilling, and I think having the lack of an engineer to draw is hurting him, but I would refer this to the Cape Cod Commission. I'm kind of actually interested in seeing how they would handle it. I also didn't think that the L should be as big as the regular house. I thought the 3 windows is odd looking to a half cape front facade. And I've not seen that design anywhere in the historic district. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about this? I know not everybody was able to come yesterday, so. Okay, Jack, go ahead. Jack's having technical difficulties. There you go.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. Did I do it? Did I succeed? Okay. What would we achieve by referring it to the commission as what a DRI is, a development of regional impact? Is that right?
Yes.
So what and what does that achieve? I guess that we can't do ourselves.
Is that a question directed towards me? Okay. So a DRI, essentially, if you want to refer it to the Cape Cod Commission, is to save the character defining features. So the letter that I sent you all from Sarah Korjeff, who's the historic preservationist, as we know, with the Cape Cod Commission, they would hold essentially the same thing that we do, a public hearing, a public meeting, to work with the applicant to save the character defining features. So that's why you would refer it. This one is, again, discretionary because it's the 25% of the gross floor area. And essentially, we could continue, if possible, to work with the applicant to make the necessary changes to preserve those features if that's what you wish to do. If it's discretionary and you think that what the applicant is proposing is fine and it's in kind with the historic district, then you could vote that way, or the vote would be to refer it if you don't feel as though the proposed work is historic and keeping in kind with the district. If that answered your question.
Yeah, I guess I hear that it is discretionary. I would like to find a compromise. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Bob, there is an engineering component to this that was in the original package of reading material dated the 11th of February. So the owners have consulted an engineer, but I don't know whether they've consulted on the question that you and Julie have raised, which I think primarily falls in the area of how much the addition would be set back from the original half cape. Am I correct?
Right.
And the picture that you showed yesterday of one way to do it, I grant you that's one way to do it, but what you were showing was an addition that was a 1-story addition, not a 2-story addition.
Right, but you could have a 2-story addition. That just happened to be a 1-story addition. My point was that if you bring the front wall behind the western front window, then the upper western front window would also be exposed, preserving 2 of the character defining features.
So
Where he wants to put it, there won't be any of the original windows showing. And I just think that the size of what he wants to build will just ruin the whole character of the house. That's just my opinion.
Is that your opinion? If he would also move the setback back how far?
behind the first.
I hear what you said in terms of keeping visible two of the windows on the existing side of the half cape. How far back is that as an actual measurement?
It has to go beyond the first window downstairs.
So he's
Yes.
proposing a 2-foot setback, and I think I heard him say yesterday he could move it back a few more inches to 32
Right.
inches.
He won't move it back behind the window. So the real question is, plus he's changing more than 25% of the floor space.
Well, yeah, I grant you that absolutely it's changing more than 25% of the floor space, but that's not a deal killer in my mind anyway, that particularly when you want to expand the house and you can, it seemed to me that he can't go backwards away from the street because he's running up against that barn and he's got a septic field out back too that so I guess what I'm hearing from the other commission members, nobody thinks there's any room for compromise here.
What kind of a compromise?
Well, on the setback, does everybody feel as though the setback has to go much farther back than the 32 inches? I guess I'd like to hear some views from other people too.
I think it does with it, the way he's got it set up, it just makes it kind of look like all one line. Like it doesn't accentuate the existing half cape, and it makes it look like a completely different style of house. I mean, I'm not an architect, but I feel like there must be another way to do it, preserving that half cape and still getting the addition that he wants. I think he's actually on our Zoom, and I think Grace's going to can you let him in so that he can participate with us? Yeah. Okay. Sam, go ahead. Sam, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I had to unmute myself. All I was going to say is I agree with Bob in that the setback should be further back, just to preserve it. And my only thought is maybe not make the addition quite as long as was proposed.
Yes, Sam, thank you. I agree with you as well. Beverly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I agree with Bob, and I'm concerned about the windows. I think 3 windows was really going to make the difference too. So it seems that it would be nice to get a compromise. I think it would be helpful for him as well. But I'm concerned about the 3 windows and the lack of setbacks. So kind of in the same ballpark as Bob. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you, Beverly.
Am I on?
Yes, you're here, Ben. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
Um,
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So as far as not compromising, there were things I am willing to compromise on. I did try to push it back as far as I can to maintain the roof line for the door that I want to access the existing house, and that's 34 inches from the front. There are things I'm willing, you asked about the windows on the side. I had like transom style windows originally. You asked me to change those to keep the character of the existing half cape gable wall at the end. That's fine. If you want 2 windows, that's fine. I don't care about the windows. So please don't say I'm not willing to compromise. What I do not want to compromise on is the setback. 2 feet is a very standard setback for houses. Driving around yesterday, looking at half capes up 6A, I saw many of them. Yes, mine is a little longer, but my house is also a little longer than a lot of half capes I've come to find. It's 26 feet. A lot are 20, 24. So it is a larger half cape than some, especially with the second floor. Most half capes will start with an 8-foot wall right on the second floor. My walls are 10 feet. I have 2-foot knee walls on my second floors. So it is, from what I've seen, in a larger half cape. even I noticed the South Yarmouth Library was originally a half cape, and it has 2 additions, one on each side. The one on the right is only set back 2 feet. It has a different roof line, but the setbacks are 2 feet on one side and it looks like 4 or 6 on the other. So 2-foot setbacks are out there. I don't want to say that they're the normal. I don't want to say that 4 foot's the normal either, but they're out there. So showing me a picture of one house that is a 6-foot setback, I'll send you right back one with a 2-foot setback. They're out there, and it will still show the half cape. Also, I don't understand exactly when your committee comes up. Grace kind of enlightened me on that, but I've done work to the house and did not need to come before you. When I changed my windows, nobody asked me the grid pattern. I could have put prairie windows in there, and it doesn't seem like anyone was going to say anything. When I did the siding on the front of the house, building inspector did not ask me what type of siding I was putting up. I could have put up vinyl siding. I didn't. I like the historical character of this house. That's why we bought it. I kept the 2-inch historical sills on the windows. I kept the grid patterns on the windows, even though they're more expensive. I'm not trying to lose the character of the house. I do want to maintain it. I understand you have ways that may make it more lasting, and a 4-foot setback or 6-foot setback may keep the character a little more than the 2 feet. But I'm not trying to get rid of it. And there are many things that I would compromise on. I just do want the door going into the front window. One reason is the chimney that goes up through there comes within 2 inches of that back window. It's offset. The whole front room is a straight shot to the window, where the back window, the chimney kind of sticks into that room. So it would not be a straight line in front of that window if that's where the door was. Some other things I saw with half capes, I don't know if it's why, this is just my speculation. A lot of them are on narrow lots, which could be a reason that they typically went back. Again, I'm not saying they all are, but just some that I noticed. My half cape, the lot was originally twice the size. The house next door was built on a section of this property. So there is a lot of room on the side to go. 2 windows on the front or 3 windows, it just doesn't make a difference to me. So I don't think the windows should be a deal breaker, because that's certainly something I am willing to consider. And like I said, with keeping it the way that I'm proposing, it would be, I could do a 34-inch setback. As far as architects and engineers go, I work with architects and engineers. I'm in construction, so I deal with them often. I had 2 architects that I know come out. They were trying to save me money, so they gave me their ideas, did up little sketches for me, and then allowed me to draw it just to save money. There's an engineer stamp for my plans for what I need one for. So, I know my drawings are not perfect and extremely professional. They are done by me, but I don't think that me spending $5,000 or $6,000 to have an engineer draw them up a little bit nicer should make a difference. I'm sure if I go to the Cape Cod Commission, then I will be required to do that. And I just never feel like spending money where it shouldn't be needed is necessary.
Jack,
I got a question for Ben, or for maybe for Grace. Have we heard any objections or expressions of support from any abutters? I'm not aware of that. No neighbors complaining or supporting, or silence usually means assent.
For this meeting, you would have, so we haven't gone to a public hearing yet. We haven't had a vote determination about whether or not this would be considered a substantial alteration. If that's the case, then we would have to, our next step, it would be referred, but we'd have to go to a public hearing for abutters to be notified. It has been posted. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't received any correspondence, but if it continued, again, it would be placed in a legal ad, so that might be advertised more widely. So far, no.
Okay, Julie lost internet, I guess what we need to do, Jack, go ahead.
I guess I'm still not, it isn't clear in my head what we're achieving by referring it to the commission. I know Grace said that they would, if that's the case, the commission would hold a hearing, kind of like we're holding. This is maybe technically not a hearing, but it's certainly a public meeting, and we had a public meeting about this the last time we met in March. So what happens at a DRI? I don't think in the time I've been on the commission, I don't think we've made any referrals. At least I'm not remembering any. But what happens with this? I guess I'm asking the question so it's clear in my mind what we're voting for.
So if there was a referral, it would be a similar process as to what is occurring now, except that the jurisdiction for the alteration comes from the county law. So that's where the powers are invested within this historical commission to make that determination of substantial alteration or not. And so if we are unable to work with the applicant and they want to go ahead with their proposed plans, and if that is not agreeable to the commission, and then it is referred to the Cape Cod Commission for them to essentially do what we are doing now, just at a higher level. So it does include an informal review with the commission, from my understanding, and then it usually is pushed to a public hearing beyond that. Sometimes what happens is if they go to the Cape Cod Commission, then sometimes they can find common ground. It doesn't have to go to a public hearing. Again, that's my understanding of it. And sometimes it has to be pushed to a public hearing, depending on whether or not common ground is found there or not, if that makes sense.
So, Grace, I guess I would ask, I've been on the periphery here, but do we have a document that summarizes, the several discussions that we've had, and what are the points that we're looking to agree on? Do we have such a document?
In terms of this application or the process of referral?
Well, we've asked the homeowner to consider making changes, and have we put that in writing, and have we written comments? I would think before we would take it, if we take it up, we'd have to have a written document saying what was agreed and what was not agreed upon.
That would be after a vote. So there would have to be a vote about whether or not this was a substantial alteration or not. If there is a vote that there is a substantial alteration, then there needs to be another vote about whether or not it is referred. So yes, once that vote is made, then a document can be drafted about those points.
Okay, so please give us again what the guidelines are for determining if it's a substantial alteration.
It really falls upon your discretion about whether or not you believe that these key defining features are key defining or not, and whether or not the substantial alteration would take away from the historic look and feel of the district and of the property itself. It is a contributing property. So whether or not this alteration would essentially put the status of whether or not it's a contributing building at risk. So the MACRIS document that I forwarded to the commission and to the applicant is about why it's a contributing building, and therefore really the only thing, it's again in limbo because it's not like this is being demolished in full, which would be a mandatory DRI, but it's any substantial, quote unquote, whether you see such alteration of 25% of the gross floor area. So this alteration does meet that, which then puts the onus upon the commission with their judgment about whether or not this is appropriate or not for the historic district. So that's what you need to determine. What are the key defining features and whether or not you feel as though the alteration takes away from that and should be referred, or you can work with the applicant, or you think that the addition is appropriate for the historic district.
So Grace, do we have a document that lists the key defining, issues? Do we have something that, we can say, here are the defining issues that we're making an assessment on, and we'll bring it to a vote? So I guess, again, I'm a little confused as to.
That the key defining features would need to be determined by the commission. You have Sarah Korjeff's letter, which is an informal review of what she believes in. Are the key defining, I do concur with what she has stated, just based on the fact that it is a half cape and based on the vernacular architecture of Cape Cod. And after the site visit, I did confirm that by going through the surrounding neighborhood with some of the other additions that are on there. But you need to determine what is architecturally and historic significant. So it's really upon the commission to make that determination.
So then we're looking for a motion to, from the floor, to ascertain whether we discern that there is significance or not significance. Is that correct, Grace?
It would need to be about whether or not this alteration is considered substantial. So if it's considered a substantial alteration, then you either work with the applicant here or it's referred. If it's not considered substantial, then the applicant can go ahead and construct this addition. So you would need to parse out what those key defining features are. Is it the window pattern? Is it the window pattern and the setback? Is the addition too large, too small, so forth?
Thank you, Grace. So Bob?
Yeah, so George, just to help define further, the key defining features that would be covered up on the western side would be the windows and the trim. They would be completely covered, and I guess Ben said he would use that same architecture on the new western wall of the addition. And I have to appreciate the fact that Ben has actually done quite a bit of work. He's done some research. He has kept a lot of the character defining features unaltered in the front of his house, making changes to the, or upgrades. And my feeling is that I can appreciate all of that. That's really great stuff. I think the size of the addition puts it in that 25% or greater area. And my personal opinion is that it looks a little odd with the L being so wide. I know it's the same size as the house, but it's pretty big. It does alter the overall look of the house quite a bit. Really, that's, but I can appreciate the work he's done and that he's trying to keep those character defining features. But I think this may go beyond our scope a little bit. That's what I'm thinking. So that's my input.
Any other discussions or input? Jack?
I guess we seem to be moving toward a vote of some sort. So I'd just like to say that I think that the changes that Ben has offered at our last meeting, and I heard him say this morning a little bit more, are sufficient for me to think that I would approve of what he's proposing to do here to add on to the house. I think that mimicking the windows on the new addition, he made that change to, we're calling it the west side. I guess that's what it is, the west facade, the side facade. It helps me a lot. Hearing him this morning say that he would be happy to put in 2 windows versus 3 on the front facade makes me more inclined toward accepting it. And I appreciate the differences of opinion that we have here this morning on what constitutes a proper setback and whether a 34-inch setback versus a 5 or 6 or 10-foot setback alters the historic characteristics of the building. But I'm satisfied with what I think I've understood here, a 34-inch setback, windows on the front and the side that mimic the original half cape. And again, and sort of, maybe this is a subjective kind of thing, but Grace said that she went through the neighborhood. I've been through the neighborhood too. And it seems to me that there's a lot of houses with an array of additions to them, different style houses from, half capes and 3/4 and other styles that, may or may not meet a historic altering standard. But I think that I'd be willing to accept I'd be willing to accept the compromise. I'm probably going to vote no. I will vote no on both of these.
Sam?
I have a question for Ben. How wide is the front facade of the house, the original part?
26 feet.
Okay, how wide is the addition that you're proposing on the western side?
26 feet.
Would there be a way to shrink the width of the addition so it was not so large in taking away from the original feature of the original look and feel of the house? Would there be a way to shorten it to maybe 2/3 of the size?
My quick math can't tell me what 2/3 of the size is, but I think like 22 feet I should be able to do. I don't know if you were on the original meeting, but again, one of the reasons that I am hesitant to pull it back from the front is I need to get a staircase in.
I understand your desire to pull it, your setback from the front of 34 inches or whatever it is. I understand that aspect for getting access to the second floor in the addition part. Is that correct?
Yeah, and what I'm saying is 22 feet. Because of the staircase, I'd like to still have room. So the staircase is going to be taking up 4 feet, essentially, of the length of the addition. So that's why I don't want to make it too small, because again, that 4 feet is going to be the staircase inside. So I think like 22 feet, I would be able to make work for what I need to get in there, what I'm trying to get in there. I think that's probably a little over 2/3, but
that's just my initial thought is just having the addition, having it the same size as the house may detract from the original look of the main part of the house. So if you were able to bring it down to 2/3 size, I'm not sure what it would be. I was thinking somewhere around 18 to 20 feet, but that was just the number in my head. That way it's not overpowering the original facade, if you know what I mean. I don't know if anybody else in the commission
Yeah,
has opinions on what I'm thinking here, but that's just my personal thought.
I like I said, 22 I could do. I might be able to look over the plans and get it to 20. I'd have to do some math and look at the plans to see if 20 could still work.
I would be interested to see if 20 could work, and if you could do a quick front facade sketch of that shortened, just to see the visual difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Bob, thanks,
Yeah,
Sam.
I just wanted to clear up a few things. So it wasn't the number of windows in the addition that I was objecting to. I think at 26 feet, you need 3 windows. You can't do 2 because then it would look odd. So my initial thought was more like what Sam is talking about. And I think if you are able to shave 6 feet off of that and center, the windows then in that, then I don't think it would look so odd, such a drastic change in the front. I'm just looking for a relativeness, and I think, your willingness to even look at that, Ben, is I'm glad to hear that you would look at that. Maybe, I don't know how far back it goes, but maybe you could pick up some by moving it backward. I don't know. Towards the back of the house instead of the side. You pick up that square footage.
So, any more discussion? Jack, could you just clarify your statement that the 2 items that you would vote no on? I need to clarify that.
I think what I was hearing before, that what we're going to do this morning is have 2 votes. One would be to determine whether the commission thinks this is a substantial alteration or a substantial change. And then so that's one decision. And then a second decision, as I'm understanding what we've been saying this morning, would be to refer the case to the Cape Cod Commission as a development of regional impact, and that the commission then would hold hearings, public hearings. I can tell you right now that what I heard in the last 5 minutes, starting with Sam's question and Bob's response and Ben's interaction with that, is that I see more grounds for compromise emerging from the discussion this morning, which makes me feel even stronger that on the second, if we're looking at 2 votes, the second vote, which is a referral to the commission, I'm even more sure of a no vote on that, because I'm hearing things here. The more we talk, this is the subject. This is the definition of the word negotiation. That we could have an accommodation without the necessary referral to another governmental unit. Bob raised a good point too. Here a couple of points, of structural points. One is Ben's comments about the need for space to put in a set of stairs. And then Bob raised another point that if in terms of shortening the length of the proposed addition, pushing it backward could increase the square footage lost by the shortening of the length. So I'm hearing grounds here for compromise. It's going to take some more time, but I think maybe it's a better and more user-friendly route than referring it to the commission itself. That's just an opinion. A lot of this is subjective. There is some holding up a sheet called Guidance for Determining What Qualifies as a Substantial Alteration. This is from Commission, this is the Commission guidelines. A lot of this is very subjective, and you don't need to drive around town very much to see a lot of differences, some of which may have occurred before zoning and building codes and whatnot. But anyway, that's what I'm referring to, George, in terms of how I'm looking at it as two votes. But like I said, I don't know, maybe other people would feel differently after hearing some of the more grounds for compromise.
Great, thanks, Jack. Sam?
I'm not trying to make more work for either the homeowner, Ben, or for us, but I think what might be helpful at this stage, in my opinion, would be to have Ben consider some of our suggestions and possibly do, it doesn't have to take that long, and he's obviously capable of doing it himself, is just run up a couple quick sketches of the ideas of shrinking maybe the addition down to 20 feet. Do that one of them with the same base footprint, and then do the same one with it shrunk back 20 feet with expanded in the back, just to see the differences on a visual level where you can have 1, 2, and 3, and you can actually look at them and possibly reconvene at a future meeting and look at these and get opinions. Because we can talk about it, but unless, to a certain extent, unless you see something in front of you, it doesn't necessarily work as well, in my opinion. I feel like that might be a good route to go, would be to ask Ben if he would be willing to draw up a couple quick sketches and share with us at a future meeting for some further discussion.
I agree with
Thanks,
that.
Sam. I like your thought process. Let me have a word from Bob, and then we'll decide the next steps. Bob?
Yeah, I like Sam's suggestion, and I think that we shouldn't vote on this today, and we should let Ben come back to us with an alteration.
Okay, so Sam, we're looking for a motion. If you could just summarize again what we're asking Ben to do, and we'll ask Grace to send out a note on that, and then we'll.
I would motion Ben to draw up a couple of sketches. Doesn't have to be perfectly accurate, just some raw ideas to get in front of us. Maybe one of maybe 20 feet, maybe 22 feet, maybe pushed back in a little bit, just to get some ideas in front of us and to reconvene once we receive those sketches and have a further discussion at a future meeting.
So we have a motion.
Second the motion. I'll second the motion.
Bob, did you have more discussion?
Just that, Ben, if you do further renditions, could you show us what 3 windows and 2 windows would look like in the front?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so modified the motion. We're looking for a second.
Second the motion.
Beverly, second. Do a roll call, please. Jack,
Yes.
Beverly,
Agreed.
Bob,
Yes,
Sam,
Agree.
Robert,
Bob,
Hi, yes.
Kathy,
yes.
and George votes yes. So, so the motion is passed. Ben, thanks again for your time, and
Thanks, Ben.
Beverly.
I want to thank Ben. That's just to make a statement. That's such a beautiful historic district, and my concern is the more changes that are being made there, we're going to lose the history and the beauty of our history. So thank you so much for being so cooperative.
I want to
Us to
as well.
talk to you again.
Hold it, Sam. Let Beverly finish.
And allowing us to speak to you again and look at the plans again. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Sam?
Yeah, I wanted to express my thanks to Ben as well for being open to the idea and willing to take the time to revisit this with some further sketches and being willing to work with us and compromise as much as he has shown so far.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Ben. Have a great
All right.
day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just have to mention that I have to leave by 11. I've got some stuff I have to do today that's time sensitive.
That's fine. Okay, Grace, I think the next agenda item is to take a look at the seal.
Yep.
Okay, and I'll share my screen. I have the documents. So
I think I'm going to sign off for the day. I wish I could stay longer, but I've got, as I said, I've got some stuff I need to
sure,
attend.
go ahead, Sam. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Team, my thought is we'll, just look at the draft of the select board presentation. Bruce is still working on the website, and we'll be adding and refining the larger presentation on an ongoing basis. However, what Grace needs to do is to submit the letter and the slides to, is it the clerk, Grace, to get it posted today?
The town administrator's office, which I've already forwarded to them because they need to send out packets by noon today to the select board.
So what did you forward?
I forwarded the one that the first one in the last email that you sent, not the draft, but the other.
Well, so you forwarded the slides?
Yes,
So the slides have changed?
from
Yeah,
the one that you sent me at 4 o'clock yesterday.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
because they have to have something to pass out.
I understand that. So, so what we submitted yesterday is already being in process then, if you will?
Yes,
Okay.
you will be able to share your updated one.
Got
These are
it.
just notes for them to review.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. Let's walk through this, and if you have any other comments, obviously we have time until Tuesday. Grace, this cover letter was what was sent with the packet? Excellent. Okay. All right, that's not much there. So, so this is pretty much the same from what we submitted yesterday, and the same with this. And this is substantially the same. So most of the tweaking I must have done on the larger one. So and what I did on this one, I kind of highlighted what the imagery description was, and so that when this slide is put up in front of the board, it can hone in on on the items that are in chapter 42.2. And the seal imagery, which has been tweaked and simplified. You can see changed the pine tree and took the reference out that it's important to the native folks. That was kind of the major one. This is a familiar slide. So this is what, we've been looking at. One of the things that I'm waiting for feedback from the town of Bourne, from their historic commission as to what their actual adoption date is. And so, so they're having difficulty going through documentation and finding out what that is. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And then this is kind of a simplification. I added a Y because in the very beginning we talked about Yarmouth seal, the when, what, why, and who. So just to make sure we cover each of those points, I added the why and this comment. Also added this slide, which Jack's research indicated that in 1894 there was a reference to town seals for 2150. And given the cost escalator, that's about $658 in today's money. And so it gives us a lead, if you will, and get more information, post-COVID. And next slide, we start to get into the discussion of the changeable seal based on historic, cultural, changes in either a state or town or whatever. So, be talking points relative to that. Changed this around a little and had discussions with Jack this morning. So this is, to present the fact that even though our seal has not changed in 137 years from a substantive standpoint, look and feel and utilization in the town and on different town documents show that, it hasn't been strict constructionist, if you will. And then this will be my opportunity to, close and make closing statements. And throughout the slides, I'll be taking questions. And so, and as we agreed, I'll be the major presenter, but if there's a point of information or detail, I may ask Jack, or I may ask Bob or Julie if they wanted to add anything. So in watching Mark run his meetings, he often asks if anybody else on a committee or team has anything to offer. So I think don't be bashful is what I guess I'm trying to say. So so any comments, any suggestions? Again, be working on this over the next several days as we move to the presentation on Tuesday. Any questions? Don't hear anything. Okay. I just have one other. So, so as we talked at the last meeting, this is a slide that will not be part of the package, and anticipating a question, from the select board as to next steps. If they decide that they agree with our assertions that the imagery is not accurate, then this is a draft, and I've reworked it kind of substantially from the last time I put forward. And so, first goal is to create several town seal iterations, and then the bullets is to define what the community wishes to convey on the new seal. And both David Whedon in his interviewing with the Harwich Seal and Paula Peters mentioned is what's the message you're trying to convey. So I think that's a key point. And I had sent out a copy of Mashpee's digital request and the items that they're looking for, and they've kind of put them into categories. And again, this is a draft, so what we are dealing with have to consider is the 10,000 years of Indigenous peoples' history here, the 400 years of colonial history, and the natural beauty of Yarmouth. And clearly these can increase, as we get into the phase. Yarmouth community input, the town seal imagery digital survey, using the Mashpee model, cultural community input. One of the thoughts, an art project for children and adults around iterations prior to recommendations to the select board. Expand the town seal committee with town department representatives from the library, schools, finance, and digital support. Next goal is to create a town seal budget for scope of services, native imagery consultant and graphic designs, encourage public donations. I think this is going to be, a lot of interest in the town, and hopefully, there's some people that would be willing to donate for this. And finally, a combined event, Indian Memorial rededication that we've pushed off for, several years, last spring because of COVID, but I would, suggest that we do a combined Indian Memorial rededication and presentation of the new seal. So, and again, this is very rough. Any comments or suggestions? Okay.
George?
Bob?
Yeah, so I just want to understand where we're going. So we're presenting that certain imagery depicted by leaders of the Wampanoag tribe are not correct on our seal. And I think I hear you saying we want to go beyond that.
What do you mean?
What you said in the next phase, well, I'm not sure.
Well, and thanks for bringing that up, and that's important to discuss. And Ms. Peters asked when she joined us what our intent was. Was our intent just to, change the native imagery? Was our intent to change, the whole seal? And so, so we mentioned, and I think it was myself, I said, I would assume that we would be looking to redo, the seal based on, input from the community, and that ultimately would be what the board would have to approve. So, and that's my thought, is that if we're going to do this, and it's 137 years in the making, I guess my question would be is why wouldn't we open it up and take a look at all of it? And some of the imagery may stay there, as we've had in our discussions with the lighthouse, maybe Point Gammon, the sailing ship, maybe Mr. Aiken's boat. So the pine tree, significance of that, we don't know. So so I guess Bob, if you can just relate what your concerns on this would be.
Well, I think initially, when we approach the selectmen, it's going to be that the Native American imagery stated by the Wampanoags is not correct.
Mhm.
I don't know that we're really prepared to go beyond that unless the selectmen agree to what we're saying,
Mhm.
and then it goes to the public for comment. I don't think that we should dictate the comment on that. Other than the Native American imagery stated by the Native Americans is not correct.
Conversation, please. Folks weigh in, please.
Hello,
Jack?
George. I hear Bob's point, and I tend to agree with it that we, but there's a but in this. I tend to agree with it. Where primary message here is to say to the selectmen what we've discovered in terms of cultural inaccuracies with respect to the seal. But Bob, the issues that George covered in little tick fashion there with something that he described as a last slide that was going to be held in reserve. I didn't have any problem with the subjects that George ticked off as sort of next steps to be considered. I don't look at them so much as recommendations as a series of ideas that the selectmen would decide on based on their own decision-making process. We come in and we tell them the cultural inaccuracies. We could tell them speculatively what we think the other symbols, the non-Native American symbols, possibly represent. And then they have to decide something about whether they want to just make revisions in the seal. Do they want to start all over again? I don't see us as a commission, as a subcommittee, and then as a full commission making those recommendations. It seems like it's almost like a natural extension once you get to the end of the briefing and the selectmen go, thank you, or whatever, and then they start to discuss among themselves the beginning stages of, well, what do we do next, if anything? I mean, always in any list of decision points, do nothing is one of the options. That's the way human nature operates. But I don't have any problems going over some of those points or all of them, whatever seems appropriate at the end when the selectmen start to think about, well, what do we do next? It's going to be their decision. We could be helpful as a historical commission to offer some initial comments, and we have an example that they would consider themselves with or without us telling them, and that is what the town of Mashpee is doing on its own, and the state. There's two examples right in front of us. And some of those things were covered in George's points. So that's where I come out.
Okay.
And Bob, your point is very well taken, and you're absolutely correct. When I'm doing this summation, it's going to say, here's what our marching orders were, which was to assess and review the imagery, the Native imagery. And so the summary will say, all right, here's what we have found out. Here's our research. Here's the testimony. And based on that, we, indicate that it's inaccurate. And then that's it. We've done our job.
Okay.
And so, and then.
That's fine. That's fine. I just like to point out that the Mashpee and the state seal is predominantly Native American. There's literally nothing else other than a sword over the head, which is objectionable by everybody. But those are two, characteristics. They don't have everything in their seal that we have in ours.
Right.
So there are certain things that are offensive and incorrect. And then there are certain things where we have found information on, which aren't incorrect, or I just want to make sure we make that distinction, that we're not proposing that we change the entire seal, that's not our position. That's all.
Right.
It's really their decision, and some things are characteristically wrong, and other things are really indifferent, but we found out information on them.
Yep. Points well taken, and that will exactly be my approach. It's, as we started this process, it was Joe Friday. It's all about the facts, man. And here are the facts. You asked us for them, and we have found pretty extensive facts. And and all of this is up on the website, and they're going to, be able to access it starting this afternoon when Bruce makes it live. And so if they do their homework, they're going to see a thread. And but points well taken. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Grace, next.
Oh, well.
Let me share the agenda.
My idea was, or what I'm thinking, that you would be actually just showing them the way the seal is and what is historically inappropriate or unreal, and then letting them make a decision on whether to update the seal to make it look historically accurate. Is that?
Yes, I think that's a good summary of it, Kathy. And so, and I think consistent with that, and I want to throw that out, is where I made a comment on the pine tree. Then based on your points, that probably editorial comments should probably come out on that, because that, that's not something that they asked us for. Is that kind of a point you're making? So
That's another one of those fact things, George. Like, it's not a fact. We don't, in other words, it's not culturally this or that.
right.
We don't really know what kind of tree it is, but
Right.
we know we shouldn't say it's a pine tree.
Right.
Yeah, but the bylaw says it's a pine tree. So are you saying we leave an editorial comment in there or not?
Was the
You're just pointing it out. That's all.
Okay.
I
All
think
right, so we're not. Go ahead, Kathy. Was
the pine tree perhaps in the late 1800s the predominant tree? Well, we really didn't do a lot of research there. That's all speculation. I mean, people look at it and say, well, it's really not a pine. It looks more like a cedar. The research that Jack did, we found reference in the 250th anniversary booklet to a lone tree. So it would be a stretch to say, well, I mean, it might fit, but we weren't sure on that. So, Grace?
The pine tree is the most prevalent tree on Cape Cod.
That's right.
Just a point of fact.
Scrub pine?
There's a
ahead.
couple different variations, but yeah,
Right.
the pine tree is the most prevalent tree.
Right.
Mhm.
Jack, Bob, excuse me.
Yeah, just wanted to mention that Lone Tree Creek got its name before 1795 because it appears on the 1795 map.
Mhm.
So the lone tree is not something, I don't believe, that was prevalent in 1885. I think it was significant long before that and may not even have existed in 1885.
Right. But again, it's information that we found, but not relevant to the, what the select board asked us to, look into, but we have some possible options, so. Okay. Grace?
I think Beverly has a
Okay,
question.
so any Judah Baker windmill comments, any historic properties, archaeology?
I think Beverly had a comment.
I'm sorry, Beverly, I can't see you.
Okay. My concern is, what is the message we're trying to relay? My concern is that when you got to the end and you presented the next slide, or you were going to discuss budget and public donations and all that. My concern is the timing of that. If the selectmen need to make time to discuss how they look at the seal and what they believe about the seal, I think the emphasis would be on the things that are most inaccurate, but how to go any further. I would be concerned about kind of making those kind of comments, because it would kind of shade us into probably putting our spin on what we think. And that would be my concern about that. So it's always timing with some of these things. I don't know how you would bring it back to it, but I think there's a way to bring it back. I would just be concerned about saying that we're either for or against anything. My concern is the American Indians representation and the accuracy and what their feelings are around that. But other things, I think they're kind of open. And just like we can have so many different opinions, when you open it up to the public, you're going to have many, many different opinions. And there's, so you want to be careful about how much you want to open that up. That's my opinion.
And very well said, Beverly. And so I guess in my mind's eye, and Jack and Bob, maybe you can, weigh in on this, is that if the question comes, what's next, then is the appropriate answer, the board needs to direct us as to how they want to go. Is it, do they just want to change the, the native imagery? So I think that's kind of what you're getting at, Beverly, is, the board will wait for the board to tell us what next steps are. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think
That's fair.
this is, I think Beverly is saying what I said, but in kind of a different way.
Yep.
We are just presenting, and we can present a lot. We can present all of our findings, but how we're just presenting.
Yep.
It's really going to be up to them whether they even agree or whether they want to take it to a next step or this or that. So I agree that donations and things like that probably shouldn't be talked about.
Yep.
Until they come back to us. That's what's next.
Right. So and that's fair. And just thinking this through, if they ask next steps, then I would say, well, would look for guidance from you to to tell us what next steps are.
Yes.
Is it a partial redo? Is it, we need guidance.
We need
And
their thoughts.
Go ahead.
We need their thoughts.
Right.
We're making this presentation to them and they have to come back to us.
Yep.
So maybe we can, in your presentation, George, maybe you can say, and we await your
right
response, or, for next steps or something like that.
Further next steps. Yes, and what I'll do on Monday is, I will send out the talking points so that everybody can see them and tweak them, and so that we're all on the same page. So this is very good and very helpful. Thank you.
George.
Yep, Jack.
I think I want to repeat what I said before. I don't see any harm. I think I agree with what I just heard Bev and Bob say about, and George echo, that, explicitly saying to the board, we await your instructions on next steps. But it just seems to me to be a natural, and I would have no problem with George saying to the board, in that context of what the next steps are, is you have a couple of examples, board members, in what the town of Mashpee is doing and what the state is doing in terms of organizing themselves to make changes in a town seal and a state seal. But that just seems natural. It's factual. Mashpee's doing X, Y, and Z. The state is doing A, B, and C.
Mhm.
That doesn't take us into anything, but maybe we're assuming that the select board knows more than they do know. Maybe they haven't paid attention to or close attention to what's going on at the State House with respect to the flag and the seal, or with what's going on in Mashpee with respect to that town seal, or that they even know that the Board of Selectmen in the town of Harwich have been proselytized via the local weekly newspaper for a change in that town seal. Those are the facts that we know that are helpful to present to them. So that's it. I'm happy with what George has presented here, and with the kind of parameters that Bev and Bob just put up there. In the end, when you come to the end of the presentation, the direction of the meeting is going to depend. It becomes much more fluid. It's going to depend on what the selectmen ask, and you need to be prepared to answer.
Thanks. Thank you. Yep. We've done our job. We've done it well. We've got a lot of information, and it, based on the number of questions, will determine how lengthy. We have a half an hour slotted, so it'll be fine. So, okay. Any staff reports, correspondence?
One archaeology report, George.
Okay.
About 3 weeks ago, I sent to Karen a draft for an RFQ or an RFP on the archaeological reconnaissance report, but I haven't heard anything back from her yet. So that's just the status report.
Okay. Grace, can you follow up for Jack with Karen and get a sense of when we can move along on that?
Yep, I sure can.
Thank you. And talking about, RFQ, Beverly and I briefly chatted about the Yarmouth Port sculpture. And Bev, did you want to talk about that? Yep, go ahead, Beverly.
I have a couple of things that I just want to bring up. One is about the sculpture, but I can bring that up at the next meeting, so I can give you the information that I've collected.
Okay.
So if Grace could put that on the agenda, that would be great for me. The other is just to let the committee know that I'm working on opening the Judah Baker Mill for the summer. And so I will have to meet with Grace and Karen to discuss the opening of it. So I put together a presentation that we're going to bring to the Board of Health to make sure that that can be done. And if it can be done safely, I have sent a copy of some of the points that I've made to my committee, which is three different teachers that were docents at the mill over the past 5-7 years. And I've sent them the information so that they could look at it, tweak it, think about what else could be added or what could be changed. And then we're going to meet to discuss that with the Board of Health. Chamber of Commerce has given me permission to open and think that it would be okay, but we really need to look at the safety of it at this point. So that's just to have you all know where I am and what I'm doing about the Judah Baker Mill.
Great, thank you. Bob?
Yeah, Beverly, I just submitted a reopening plan for the Banks Hallett House to Bruce Murphy. I'd be happy to forward that to you.
Thank you very much. I would
I
like that.
I used that same format to open up the Quaker Meeting House,
Mhm.
the Kelly Chapel, and the We2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. Any other reports? So next we have 2 minutes to approve the January 14th, 2021 minutes. Do have a motion? Any discussion? Any comments? Motion to approve the minutes of January 14th.
I
Motion
second.
by Bob Kelly, seconded.
Second,
Second by Jack Duggan. Roll call. Beverly?
Approve.
Bob?
Aye.
Jack?
aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Okay, those are approved. Second set of minutes from January 28th, 2021. Any discussion? No discussion. Looking for a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Kathy. Bob
Second.
Kelly seconded. All right, a roll call. Beverly,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
George, aye, and they passed. So next regularly scheduled meeting is May 6th, 2021. There's no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So
I
moved.
so move.
Second.
Jack Duggan moved and Beverly seconded. The roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Beverly,
Aye.
Jack,
Yep.
Robert,
Aye.
George, aye, and the meeting is adjourned at 11:25 a.m.